Okay, we're preparing to live stream the meeting. We're setting up our meeting on YouTube.
Cool.
Go. Go. Mohale, go.
Okay, awesome. Hello, everybody. My name is Mohale. Today we are doing grade 11 English, and I will be focusing on comprehension skills, on how to simply go through a comprehension, how to skim through it, how to identify important points in the comprehension, and knowing how to answer all the questions. So, particularly, I'd like to go through the grade 11 paper 1, focusing on comprehension. I hope all of you can see it. So we have two texts. We have text A and we have text B. But before we go into the particular test, I want to give you guys 4 important points that you should look. What is happening? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So the first important point that you should look at when you are doing your section A of your comprehension is your reading plan. Now, the important thing that you should do when you're doing your comprehension is the first step is to skim through the text. Now, when you're doing your comprehension, you really don't have enough time to read through the comprehension and then look at the questions and then read through the comprehension again, because that will make you lose marks. So the first step is to skim through it. Now, skimming through it meaning you are reading the surface of the text. Now, when you're reading through the surface of the text, you can either look through the first sentence of every paragraph. For example, let's look at this text. We have question 1, we have text A. You can look through, it says here, no planet B, tens of thousands join global youth climate strike. Now, when you are skimming through a text, you can look at either the first line of every paragraph or the first 2 sentences. Now, this will allow you to kind of get or gauge what the text is about. For example, if we look at paragraph 1, it says, a student holding a placard reading "There's no planet B" during Fridays for Future movement on a global day of student protest aiming to spark world leaders into action on climate change. Now, looking at paragraph 1, you can already see what they're trying to tell us about. That is called skimming. Going to paragraph 2 again, it says, tens of thousands of young people skipped school across the globe on Friday to march through the streets of International Day of Student Protests through pushing world leaders into action on climate change. Now, you skimming gives you an idea of what the text of the entire piece is about. So when you skim, which is step 1, you go through each paragraph reading either the first or the second sentence, and you are now going to get an idea of what it is about. And then step 2, we read the questions. We read the questions and underline the keywords. That is also where we look at our mark allocation. Now, when you are looking at your questions, for example, we have there from your question 1.1, we are able to, after we've skimmed through the text, we're able to look at ideas and underline certain keywords that will lead us to answering the questions. Now, you see, when we go to, for example, question 1.1, it says, refer to line 3 to spark world leaders into action. It says, is this line meant literally or figuratively? Now, when you're reading through the questions and looking at the mark allocation, you are able to see what exactly they're trying to ask you, and you are also trying to see if you can remember seeing any of the keywords that are in your questions, which you can find in your text. Now it says here, is this line meant literally or figuratively? Then you are able to go to line 3. It says, to spark world leaders into action. Now you are able to check what does spark mean? what does it mean when they're saying they're trying to spark world leaders into action? You are then able to say, are they meaning that literally or are they meaning that figuratively? So you would go through all of your questions from 1.1 up to 1.9, because that is what the text is focused on. And you are able to identify keywords. For example, we go to question 1.2. It says, why is a specific number of young people who stayed away from school not given? You are then able to go to your paragraph 2 and look at that. So that is step 2. And then step 3, it says, read through the passage thoroughly. Now, after you have went through all of your questions, remember step 1, we skim through the passage. Step 2, we read questions. Step 3, we go back to the passage and read now the entire comprehension thoroughly. Now, once you have read the questions, you have an idea of what they are asking you, and now you are able to go to your text again and read through the entire passage. Now, having read the questions, you're able to identify what have I seen in the questions that is in the text and what is in the text that I've seen in the questions. Because now you've skimmed through it, you've read the questions, now we're reading the entire piece. Then lastly, you answer your questions. Now you know that you now have your keywords, you have your questions, and you've read your passage. Now it will make it easier for you to answer your questions because you now have all the tools for you to answer your questions. Because what most students do is that they want to read the entire paragraphs thoroughly and then go to the questions, look at what the questions are saying, and then go back again and read it. And that takes away a lot of your time. But when you have skimmed, read the questions, read the paragraph thoroughly, now we're able to answer the question. Let's do an example. So I have the grade 11 paper June examination from 2019. It says here, section A comprehension is 30 marks. Now we go to our text. Now I said step 1 is to what? Is to skim. So we look at the title first. It says no planet B, tens of thousands join global youth climate strike. Now, the first step that we're going to do is to what? Is to skip. So we go to paragraph 1. So you see on... So I'm hearing a bit of noise. Is there a question? Okay, let's move. So as you can see on my text, on the right-hand side, it has the paragraph numbers. And then on the right-hand side, it has the line numbers. So now we go to paragraph 1. It says, a student holds a placard reading, there is no planet B during the Fridays for Future movement on a global day of student protests aiming to spark world leaders on action. This is where we're going to leave it for paragraph 1. We go to paragraph 2. It says tens of thousands of young people skipped school across the globe on Friday to march through the streets for an International Day of Student Protests.
And it's still timelines that you're working to, and it's always trying to get ahead of the future, trying to get to the end. And in this case, trying to get ahead of the
Is there a question there? Okay. Paragraph 3, it says, as youngsters hit the streets in cities across the globe, nations meeting at the UN Environment Assembly in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, announced that they had agreed to significantly reduce single-use plastics over the next decade. Then we go to paragraph 4. But experts said the pledge, which only referred to man-made global warming, made no mention of fossil fuels driving it. We go to paragraph 5. Despite 3 decades of warnings, carbon dioxide emissions hit record levels in 2017, again last year. Now we go to paragraph 6. The wave of youth activism began with 16-year-old Greta Thunberg from Sweden, who camping outside the Swedish parliament last August and accused lawmaking of failing to uphold their commitments to fight climate change as agreed under the Paris Climate Accord. That is paragraph 6. Can everybody still hear me? Okay, perfect. Then we go to paragraph 7. The wave of youth activism began with 16-year-old Greta Thunberg from Sweden. Okay, we read that one. We go to paragraph 7. It says, but the global action drew a mixed reaction from politicians who Germany's economic minister, Peter Is everybody still there? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, cool.
I can hear you.
Okay, great stuff. Sure. So we are still skimming through our text A, and we are now on paragraph 8. It says Greenpeace praised global protest, saying adults need to learn a lesson. And then we go to paragraph 9. It says, in the Indian Ocean island nation of Mauritius, students circulated a petition to be submitted to the government demanding concrete measures. So now we have skimmed through the entire text. We've went through either the first sentence of each paragraph or the second sentence of each paragraph. Now that we've skimmed through it, we now have a gist of what the text is talking about. So we now know that students are marching to parliaments, they're speaking to the government, and they're trying to understand, why do we still have things like global warming problems? Why do we still have things like greenhouse effects on our atmosphere? And now we have all of our paragraphs that are trying to give us an idea of what the entire text is about. Now that we kind of have a gist of what it's about, we now go to our questions and see if there is anything or any words or any keywords that we can use in our questions that can relate back to our comprehension passages. So now we go to question 1.1. It says, refer to line 3 to spark world leaders into action. Now we can remember that we saw that in paragraph 3 that these are young people that are trying to speak to world leaders, that are trying to speak to the parliament, for them to do something about the crisis that we are facing as a nation. Now we go to paragraph 2. We go to 1.2. It says, why is a specific number of young people who stayed away from school not given? That is 1.2.1. Now, I don't know what is happening on this screen. Why are people coloring here? Anyway, so now when we are looking at the questions, remember it is important for you to also look at the marker location on your right. The marker location will give you an indication of how long your answer should be, or what you should be focusing on when reading, when answering the questions. Let's go to question 3. It says, what is the connection between the protest action and the UN referred to in paragraph 3? Then we go to paragraph 1.4. It says, what is the pledge referred to in line 3? Okay. Then we go to question 1.4.2. What is happening here?
Can we kindly ask that people not color in on the screen?
Yeah.
Please.
There's not actually anything. Okay, now we are on question 1.4.2. It says, why are the experts not impressed with the pledge? Then we go to 1.4.3, which is also 2 marks, says, explain the irony in line 23 to 24. If you don't, adults, we will. Then we go to question 1.5. It says, choose the correct answer to complete the sentence. The words 3 decades in line 25 mean we have our options there. Then we go to question 1.6. It says, refer to lines 34 to 35. Thunberg has been for her activism. Then we go to 1.6.1. It says, what makes the nomination so outstanding? Do you think Thunberg should be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize? Motivate your response. Then we go to paragraph 7. It says, compare the views of the ministers of New Zealand and Australia in your own words. Question 1.8, refer to the extract as a whole. Explain the meaning of the title, No Planet B. Okay, then question 1.8.2, what is the connection between the title and paragraph 5? Then last question for that piece, it says, in your opinion, was it a good idea for students to strike for climate change? So now that we've read all of our questions, now we're able to go back to the text. Now we're going to read the entire text as a whole because we've skimmed through it. We've read the questions that looked at the mark allocation. Now step 3, as I've said, now we're going to go back to the text and read the entire text so that now we are then going to be able to answer our questions. So let's go back to reading the text. Please read along with me. Can I ask that people please stop coloring? Because now we aren't able to read properly. Cool. So let's go to section A, comprehension question 1. We're going to read the entire text now, and we're going to read it carefully, also thinking of the questions that we have went through. So now we're on paragraph 1. It says, a student holds a placard reading There's No Planet B during the Fridays for Future movement on a global day of student protests aiming to spark world leaders into action on climate change. This happened in Madrid on the 15th of March, 2019. The worldwide protests were inspired by Swedish teen activist Greta Thunberg, who camped out of the parliament in Stockholm last year to demand action from world leaders on global warming. I'm not sure what's happening there. Okay. Then we are on paragraph 2. We're reading this very thoroughly. It says, tens of thousands of young people skipped school across the globe on Friday to march through the streets for an international day of student protests aimed at pushing world leaders into action on climate change. Classrooms in capitals from Bangkok to Berlin, Lagos to London, emptied as ambitious organizers of student climate strike hoped to stage 1,000 demos in more than 100 countries. Then we are on paragraph 3. It says, as youngsters hit the streets in cities across the globe, nations meeting in the UN Environment Assembly in the Kenyan capital Nairobi announced that they had agreed to significantly reduce single-use plastic use over the next decade. Paragraph 4, but experts said the pledge, which only referred to man-made global warming and made no mention of fossil fuels driving it, fell far short of the steps needed to tackle Earth's burgeoning pollution crisis. As the marathon talks drew to a close, students flooded into the streets across Europe and Asia carrying placards reading, "There is no planet B, you are destroying our future, and if you don't act like adults, we will." Despite 3 decades of warnings, carbon dioxide emissions hit record levels in 2017 and again last year, loading the atmosphere with greenhouse gases at current rates, at current rates will eventually lead to an uninhabitable planet, scientists say. The wave of youth activism began with 16-year-old Greta Thunberg from Sweden, who came camping outside the Swedish parliament last August and accused lawmakers of failing to uphold their commitments to fight climate change as agreed under the Paris Climate Accord. "We are living through existential crisis, which has been ignored for decades, and if we do not act now, it may be too late," the 16-year-old Swedish public told the public television station SVT. Thunberg has been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize for her activism. Paragraph 7. But the global action drew mixed reaction from politicians, with Germany's economy minister, Peter Altmaier, saying that they should be in classes, and Australia's education minister, Dan Tehan, saying that striking was not something that we should encourage. But New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern hailed the action, saying, "We hear you and we getting on setting the path for carbon neutrality. Please keep on bringing as many people as you can, because we simply won't achieve our goals alone." Paragraph 8. Greenpeace praised the global protest, saying adults need to learn a lesson too. Imagine if their parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles, people with the powerful vote of change, were to make the same kind of effort, said John Suvan, head of the Greenpeace in the UK. "Grown-ups straying on the school strikes are like footballers applauding the crowd. You're on the pitch, score a goal or at least assist." Last paragraph, it says, in the Indian Ocean island nation of Mauritius, students circulated a petition to be submitted to the government, demanding concrete measures. The planet is heating up. The youth are rising up, they charted. The youth of Cape Town joined the international climate strike as well. So now that we've read through the comprehension text A thoroughly, now we can then do step 3 of going to the questions and answering them. We've skimmed, we've read the questions, we've read the text thoroughly. Now we're doing the last step, which is to answer the questions. Now, referring to line 3, we are now on question 1.1.1. Refer to line 3 to spark world leaders into action. Is this line meant literally or is it meant figuratively? Now, the most important thing that you must understand or that you must know is that when they're referring to spark world leaders into action, we obviously know that to spark means to start a fire or to start something. And we can't really start or spark world leaders into action. So 1.1 says, is this line meant literally or figuratively? The answer there is obviously figuratively, because what they are trying to make us understand is that these young people are trying to speak to world leaders, to people into power, to take note of the crisis that we have about our global issues. And then 1.1.2, it says, explain the meaning of the line in your own words, to spark world leaders into action. Now, to spark world leaders into action means these young people are trying to form a group to speak to people in power, to the parliament or to the government or to the leaders, to say to them, look, because you as old people or as adults are not doing anything about the climate crisis that we are facing, we are going to try our best to push you into the native of you doing something about it. That's why it's to spark world leaders into action. There's question 1.9.1 and 1.9.2. Then question 1.2 says, refer to paragraph 2. Now we have our paragraph 2 there. It says, why is a specific number of young people who stayed away from school not given? That is paragraph 1.2.1. Now, when we go back to paragraph 2, the first line says, tens of thousands of young people skipped school across the globe on Friday to March. Now, this was an international climate strike. So we can't really know what the number of the people were. And that's why the answer to question 1.2.1 is we don't have a specific number because it was young people all over the entire world. And that's why the specific number of kids that stayed away from school was not given. That is question 1.2.1. Then we go to question 1.2.2. It says, why are the organizers called ambitious in line 12? Now, remember at the beginning, I told you that on the right-hand side of our text, we have our paragraph numbers. And then, sorry, on the left-hand side of our paragraphs, we have our paragraph numbers. And then on the right-hand side of the paragraphs, we have our line numbers. Now, question 1.2.2 says, why are the organizers called ambitious in line 12? Now we go to line 12, it says, classrooms in capitals from Bangkok to Berlin, Lagos to London, emptied as ambitious organizers of the student climate strike hoped to stage 1,000 demos in more than 100 countries. Now, we need to look at why are they called ambitious? Now we go to 1.2. Now, they are called ambitious because these are a whole lot of people in different countries. And now the person who's writing this text is saying they are called ambitious because they don't believe that they would be able to pull through a whole number of people to agree with them on calling this international climate strike. And that's why they call them ambitious, because they don't believe that they would be able to pull this through. And it could be because of a number of reasons, because it could be because one, they are young, or it could be two, because they don't have the resources for them to be able to pull through this international climate strike, or it could be because they just don't think that this problem can be solved. And that's why they call them ambitious. And now you should also take note that because it's 2 marks, it needs you to explain a bit more, because it's not like question 1.2.1 that is 1 mark. Cool. Then we go to question 1.3. Remember, guys, if you do have questions, use the hashtag #LockdownESchool to ask me questions on social media, and then I'll be able to help you guys on those questions. Then we have question 1.3. It says, what is the connection between the protest action and the UN meeting referred to in paragraph 3? Now, paragraph 3 says, as youngsters hit the streets in cities across the globe, nations meeting at the UN Environment Assembly in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, announced that they had agreed to significantly reduce single-use plastics over the next decade. Now, we do know that, let me see, paragraph 3. So the connection between the UN and the protest action, we know that the people who were running this international strike were hoping to get some sort of response from the UN for them to help them reduce the single-use plastics over the next decade. So now the question says, what is the connection? The connection is that the leaders hoped to get some sort of response from the UN for them to help them attend to the problem they have about the global crisis. That is the connection that they have. They are trying to get some sort of response from the leaders for them to assist them with what they're trying to solve. And that is the connection that the protest action and the UN meeting have, as referred to in paragraph 3. Then we go to 1.4. It says refer to paragraph 4. It talks about the pledge. It says, what is the pledge referred to in line 18? Now, a pledge, looking at this question, we first need to identify what does pledge mean. Pledge means a promise that has been made, or a pledge from the world leaders of what they want to do or what they want to achieve. So it says, what is the pledge that is referred to in line 18? The pledge that is referred to in line 18 was the nations promising to reduce plastic use over the next decade. That is the pledge. That is what the UN has promised, and that is what people or the world leaders have promised, that the usage of plastics over the next decade is going to be reduced. And that is what we also see in paragraph 4. Sorry. Then we are on question 1.4.2, still answering your questions. It says, why are the experts not impressed with the pledge? Now, why are the experts not impressed with the pledge? Now, remember, they are not only asking for the reduced number of usage of plastics. They're also asking for fossil fuels that are causing global warming and pollution as well. So the experts are not impressed with this pledge because they are only addressing one thing out of the 3 things that they've asked for. They've asked for fossil fuels for reduced global warming. They've also asked for pollution crisis to also be reduced. But they are not happy with this pledge because it is only addressing one point of this entire thing, which is the reduction of plastics over the next decade. That is question 1.4.2. Question 1.4.3, it says, explain the irony in line 23. I'm seeing that there is okay, we're still good. Question 1.4.3 says, explain the irony in line 23 to 24. If you don't, adults, we will. Now let's go to line 23 and 24. Line 23 to 24. From line 20, it says, fell far short of the steps needed to tackle Earth's burgeoning pollution crisis. As the marathon talks drew to a close, students flooded into the streets across Europe and Asia, carrying placards saying, there is no planet B, you are destroying our future, and if you don't act like adults, we will. Now, question 1.4.3 says, explain the irony in line 23 to 24. If you don't, adults, we will. Now, the irony is that we expect adults to take charge, for adults to take lead. We know that if there is an adult, things happen, things are going to be sorted. Now, the irony is that these kids are now carrying placards that are saying, if parents don't do it, we will. And it's ironic because we are expecting parents to, or adults to be doing these things and not kids. But it's ironic because now kids are saying, if you guys don't do it, we will do it. And that is the irony in line 23 to 24, that we expect parents to be able to do these things, but if they're not going to do them, we're going to do them ourselves. Cool. Then we are on question 1.5. It says, choose the correct answer to complete the sentence. The words 3 decades in line 25 mean. Now we know that a decade is 10 years. So if they're saying 3 decades, we simply say 10 decades times 3, which is 30 years. So the correct answer would be D for 1.5. Then 1.6 says, refer to lines 34 to 35. Thunberg has been for her activism. So we go to line 34 to 35. It says, Thunberg has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for her activism. Now they are saying, what makes this nomination so outstanding? Now, you can think about, I mean, they said Thunberg is 16 years old. So for her to be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, what really makes this nomination so outstanding? So it's 1 mark, so you can give me 1 line. So you can say she's 16 and she was able to put together this international strike. Or you can also say that she was able to pull through other countries. She was able to convince people like the UN to come in on this initiative. She was also able to pull in literally the entire world. So that's 1 mark. You can give me whatever you think is correct for that. Then 1.6.2 says, do you think Thunberg should be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize? Motivate your answer. Now, you can see there that there's 2 questions in 1 question. Do you think Thunberg should be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize? First, you give me your yes or your no, and then you motivate your response. So, for example, if you're going to say, yes, you think that she should be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, then tell me why. Tell me things like, yes, because she is helping the world sort out this problem. Or you can say, no, she is too young to be tackling such issues. She should leave them to adults. So whatever answer that you give, make sure that you motivate your response and it must make sense. Or if you're going to say yes, you can say things like, she has inspired a worldwide protest action against climate change. Or if you're going to say no, you can say she has not invented anything, she's not discovered anything, so she does not deserve to win the Nobel Prize. So whatever you're going to say, yes or no, make sure that you come up with a substantial reason that will motivate your response. Then we go to question 1.7. It says, compare the views of the Minister of New Zealand and Australia in your own words. Now, the minute you see in your own words, you cannot now go into the text and take anything out of there. You need to read the text and use your own words to compare the views like they are saying. Let's check. Yes, we are going to do text B, guys. We're still busy with text text A, but we are going to do text B after we are done with text A. Cool. So it says we must compare the views of the ministers in our own words. Now, when we are looking at the ministers' views, we are now on paragraph 7. It says, but the global action drew a mixed reaction from politicians, with Germany's economy minister, Peter Altmaier, saying that they should be in classes, and Australia Education Minister, Dave Tehan, saying that striking was not something that we should encourage. But New Zealand Prime Minister says that we hear you and we are going to get on with setting a path for carbon neutrality. Please keep on bringing as many people as you can because we won't achieve our goals alone. Now, we have 2 ministers here that have 2 different views about the striking that is happening. That is on question 1.7. So when we are comparing the views of both ministers, we can see that the Minister of New Zealand says, yes, the strike should happen because we need this to happen. But the Minister of Australia says, no, we can't have this happening. So with the 2 views that we have, in comparison, the New Zealand minister is saying, no, this should not happen. The Australian minister is saying, yes, this should happen. So all you have to do is to put that into your own words to compare the 2 views of the 2 ministers, and you'll get awarded your 2 marks. Cool. Then we are on question 1.8. It says, refer to the extract as a whole. Now we're looking at the entire piece, text A. It says, explain the meaning of the title, No Planet B. Now, we can see the title on text A says, No Planet B, tens of thousands join global youth climate strike. Now, this is how we're going to look at it. If it says, explain the meaning of No Planet B, we do know that when someone says, what is your plan B? So we have plan A, we have plan B. When someone says, what is your plan B? This is when someone simply means, what is your plan if plan A doesn't work? Now, when we are explaining the meaning of the title, No Planet B, No Planet B means we don't have another planet to live in. Just look at this. We are simply saying there is no other planet B that we're going to live in. So we need to look after planet A because there is no other planet B. So when you are explaining the meaning of the title, you will simply say that there is no other planet that we are going to live in. So there is no planet B. So the planet A that we're living in, we should really be looking after. So that is how you would explain the title, No Planet B. And then it says here on 1.8.2, what is the connection between the title and paragraph 5? So now we know that the title says No Planet B, meaning there is no other planet besides the one that we're living in now that we need to look after. Hence the international strike that is going on. Now let's look at paragraph 5. Sorry. Paragraph 5 says, despite 3 decades of warnings, carbon dioxide emissions hit record levels in 2017, right? And again last year. Loading the atmosphere with greenhouse gases at current rates, which will eventually lead to an uninhabitable planet, scientists say. Now, when we're looking at paragraph 5, we can see that scientists are saying if we continue to not do anything about carbon dioxide emissions, greenhouse gases, global warming, we will not have a planet to live in because we would have destroyed it. Now, looking at the question, it says, what is the connection between the title and paragraph 5? The title says No Planet B. And paragraph 5 says, if we continue to do all of these things, our planet will be uninhabitable, meaning we won't be able to live in this planet. Uninhabitable means we can't live, we can't habitate in this planet. Now, looking at the title, it says No Planet B, and looking at what the scientists are saying, they're saying we are going to be having an uninhabitable planet. So that is the connection between the title and the paragraph. What the scientists are saying, that we can't live in this planet if we continue to go through global warming, greenhouse effects. The connection is that we will not have a planet. No planet B, and what the scientists are also saying that this planet is going to be uninhabitable. That is in paragraph 5 in the last sentence. This will eventually lead to an uninhabitable planet. We won't be able to live in this planet, and therefore there is no planet B. And that is the connection between the title and paragraph 5. Cool. And then the last question for text A says, in your opinion, was it a good idea for students to strike for climate change? So that could basically just be your own opinion. If you say yes, it was a good idea, then you need to give me a response to say yes. I am saying yes, it was a good idea for them to strike because they are young people, they are the leaders of the future, and they should be the ones that are taking care of the planet because they will be living in it. That is one of the responses you can give me. Or if you're going to say no, it was not a good idea for them to strike, then you also give me a reason. You can say no, they are supposed to be in school, they are supposed to be in class, they're not supposed to be in the street striking. They should leave this to the government, they should leave this to adults, they should leave this to the UN. You are just going to be, you just have to give me a substantial reason why you're saying yes in your own opinion, or you're saying no in your own opinion. Awesome. And that was the questions for text A. We went through the text, we skimmed through it, we read the questions, we read through it thoroughly, and we answered the questions. And that is what you need to do for your comprehension. Remember the 4 steps. You skim through the paragraph. After skimming through the paragraph, you read the question. After reading the questions, you go back to the paragraphs and read them thoroughly and carefully. And then you answer the questions and also look at the mark allocation. Let me just check if we have any questions. Let's see. Cool. Let us quickly go through text B. Then the class will be over. Text B says, how long does it last? Have you ever thought of how long it takes for trash to decompose? Minimize your trash and recycle. Different materials decompose at different rates. How long does it take for these common types of trash to break down? So here we're giving a text that has pictures to say how long does it last? How long does it take for trash to decompose? It says paper 2.4 weeks, orange peel 6 months, milk carton 5 years, plastic bags 15 years, tin can 100 years, plastic bottle 450 years, glass bottle 500 years, and styrofoam never. So here they're giving us Practically, how long does it take for certain materials or certain products to decompose? Let's go to the questions. What does the word it refer to in the title? Now, if we're looking at the pictures, they are showing us how long does it take for trash to decompose. So how long does it last? It refers to what? It refers to the trash that they are showing us in the pictures. I hope you guys are still with me. Then we go to question 1.11. It says, why is it important to indicate the time these materials take to decompose? So the main reason for this text is to show us how long does it last? How long does it take for trash to decompose? Now it is saying, why is it important to indicate the time these materials take to decompose? So you could either say, so that the reader realizes that it is different for different types of trash or material to decompose, because we can't just say all of them decompose between 2.4 weeks and 500 years. We need to have specific times, specific timelines for each of the products for us to show how long it takes for them to decompose. Then question 1.12, says, give a reason for why the following statement is false. A person lives longer than it takes for a plastic bottle to decompose. Plastic bottle there takes about 450 years to decompose. I don't know anyone who has lived for over 450 years. So I will just say that it takes about 450 years for plastic bottle to decompose, but it takes about, an average person lives probably about 100 or 102, 105 years. So you can say that. And then the last question there says, discuss whether the inclusion of pictures is effective in this text. If you are going to say yes, it is effective, you can say it is easier to match the picture to the time it takes for it to decompose. If you're going to say no, you can say pictures are not always clear and materials are not always identifiable. And that, guys, is how you would do your comprehension. That's how you would do section A of your comprehension. Don't forget the 4 steps that I taught you guys. You skim through the text first, and then you read the questions. After reading the questions, you read the text again thoroughly, and then you answer the questions also looking at your mark collocation. If you guys do that, then you will be able to finish your comprehension tests or your section A of your paper 1 in time. If you guys have any questions, go onto social media. I'll give you my social media there. There's my email address there. If you guys have any questions regarding comprehension about the lesson that we did today, you can email me there, or you can go onto social media and use the hashtag #lockdowneschool and ask any questions that you have regarding comprehension. And that was the lesson for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.